Are we rolling? Are we, uh, uh, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. Bienvenue to the next astounding and amazing, thrilling and satisfying, irreparable, irreproachable, inimicable, abominable, irreplaceable, castigated and ameliorated, Saturnine and Saturnine and taciturn, yet bombastic and loquacious, reading Cal from another world show thing that this is. Today we're bringing you history, the 30 Years' War. Hold on to your seats as we begin. Okay, the 30 Years' War was a war. Fancy that. Fought primarily in Central Europe. All right, you know where that is? It's, to the left of Poland and stuff. Or, yeah, to the right of England and stuff. And to the north of Africa. In the Middle East and all that stuff. Okay. It was fought, when was it fought? It was fought between 1618 and 1648. One of the most destructive conflicts in human history. One of the most destructive conflicts in human history. And I know you learned all about it on Oprah or at your high school. Yeah. When you were in class, in the history class, they talked all about it, right? So you're already familiar with it. So this will just be a review. It resulted in 8 million fatalities, not only from military engagements, but also from violence, famine, and plague. You know, I sense a little bit of ethnocentrism, when I think of the Taiping Tianguo. So how many people died in the Taiping Rebellion? Does anybody know? Against the Qing? Yeah, look that one up. Or, under the period of the British Raj when India was taken over by England, how many people died? Do we know? I think it was more than 8 million, which sort of, that's, it reveals an ethnocentric subtext in this content. But, we like to be transparent on the Reading Cow Show. Okay, so it resulted in 8 million fatalities, not only from military engagements, but also from violence, famine, and plague. Casualties were overwhelmingly and disproportionately, in an adverbial sense, inhabitants of the Holy Roman Empire. Most of the rest being battle deaths from various foreign armies. The deadly clashes ravaged Europe. 20% of the total population of Germany died during the conflict, and there were losses of up to 50% and a quarter between Pomerania and the Black Forest. In terms of proportional German casualties and destruction, it was surpassed only by the period of January to May 1945 during World War II. One of its enduring results was the 19th century pan-Germanism, when it served as an example of the dangers of a divided Germany and became a key justification for the 1871 creation of the German Empire. Although the German Empire excluded the German-speaking parts of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Initially, a war between various Protestant and Catholic states in the fragmented Holy Roman Empire, it gradually developed into a more general conflict involving most of the European great powers. These states employed relatively large mercenary armies, and the war became less about religion and more of a continuation of the France-Habsburg rivalry for European political preeminence and a Habsburg attempt to rebuild the imperial authority of Germany. The war was preceded by the election of the new Habsburg Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand II, who tried to impose religious uniformity on his domains, forcing Roman Catholicism on its peoples. The northern Protestant states, angered by the violation of their rights to religious liberty, which had been granted in the Peace of Augsburg, banded together to form the Protestant Union. Ferdinand II was a devout Roman Catholic and much less tolerant than his predecessor Rudolf II, who ruled from the largely Protestant city of Prague. Ferdinand's policies were considered strongly pro-Catholic and anti-Protestant. These events caused widespread fears throughout northern and central Europe and triggered the Protestant Bohemians living in the then relatively loose dominion of Habsburg Austria, and also in the Holy Roman Empire, to revolt against their nominal ruler Ferdinand II. After the so-called defenestration of Prague, deposed the emperor's representatives in Prague, or defenestrated them, the Protestant estates and Catholic Habsburgs started gathering allies for war. Yeah, they were mad about defenestration. Yeah. The Protestant Bohemians ousted the Habsburgs and elected the Calvinist Frederick V, elector of the Rhenish Palatinate, as the new king of the Kingdom of Bohemia. Frederick took the offer without the support of the Protestant Union. The southern states, mainly Roman Catholic, were angered by this. Led by Bavaria, these states formed the Catholic League to expel Frederick in support of the emperor. The empire soon crushed the perceived Protestant rebellion in the Battle of White Mountain, executing leading Bohemian aristocrats shortly after. Protestant rulers across Europe unanimously condemned the emperor's action. After the atrocities committed in Bohemia, Saxony finally gave its support to the Protestant Union and decided to fight back. Sweden, at the time a rising military power, soon intervened in 1630 under its king Gustavus Adolphus, transforming what had been simply the emperor's attempt to curb the Protestant states into a full-scale war in Europe. Habsburg Spain, wishing to finally crush the Dutch rebels in the Netherlands and the Dutch Republic, which was de facto independent since 1581, but de jure still a part of the Holy Roman Empire, intervened. Spain intervened under the pretext of helping its dynastic Habsburg ally Austria. No longer able to tolerate the encirclement of two major Habsburg powers on its borders, Catholic France entered the coalition on the side of the Protestants in order to counter the Habsburgs. France fighting for the Protestants. Okay. Yeah, things get mixed up. I want to go, yeah, look at that. It's a little long sentence there, you know, it kind of gets away from you. Habsburg Spain, wishing to finally crush the Dutch rebels in the Netherlands and the Dutch Republic, which was de facto independent since 1581, but de jure still a part of the Holy Roman Empire, intervened under the pretext of helping its dynastic Habsburg ally, Austria. No longer able to tolerate encirclement of two major Habsburg powers on its borders, Catholic France entered the coalition on the side of the Protestants in order to counter the Habsburgs. Okay, that was better. The 30 Years' War devastated entire regions, resulting in high mortality, especially among the populations of the German and Italian states, the Crown of Bohemia, and the southern Netherlands. Both mercenaries and soldiers and fighting armies traditionally looted or extorted tribute to get operating funds, which imposed severe hardships on the inhabitants of occupied territories. The war also bankrupted most of the combatant powers. The Dutch Republic ultimately benefited. It obtained independence from the Holy Roman Empire and also from Spain, which had directly controlled the Dutch lands despite it not being part of the Holy Roman Empire, thus concluding its 80-year revolt against Spain. It subsequently enjoyed a time of great prosperity and development known as the Dutch Golden Age, during which it became one of the world's foremost economic, colonial, and naval powers. The 30 Years' War ended with the Treaty of Osnabrück and the treaties of Münster, part of the wider Peace of Westphalia. The war altered the political order of European powers. The rise of Bourbon France, the curtailing of Habsburg ambition, and the ascendancy of Sweden as a great power created a new balance of power on the continent, with France emerging from the war strengthened and increasingly dominant in the latter part of the 17th century. All right, here's where we get into the meat of it. Origins of the war. Further information, see the Brothers' Quarrel. The Peace of Augsburg, 1555, signed by Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, confirmed the result of the Diet of Speyer, 1526, ending the war between German Lutherans and Catholics and establishing that the following: rulers of the 224 German states could choose the religion, Lutheranism or Catholicism of their realms. Subjects had to follow that decision or emigrate. The principle of cuius regio, eius religio. Prince-bishoprics in other states ruled by Catholic clergy were excluded and should remain Catholic. Prince-bishops who converted to Lutheranism were required to give up their territories. The principle called reservatum ecclesiasticum. I like me some reservatum ecclesiasticum for my stuff. Yeah, okay. Lutherans could keep the territory they had taken from the Catholic Church since the Peace of Passau in 1552. Although the Peace of Augsburg created a temporary end to hostilities, it did not resolve the underlying religious conflict, which was made yet more complex by the spread of Calvinism throughout Germany in the years that followed. This added a third major faith to the religion, to the region, but its position was not recognized in any way by the Augsburg terms, to which only Catholicism and Lutheranism were parties. The rulers of the nations neighboring the Holy Roman Empire also contributed to the outbreak of the 30 Years' War. Spain was interested in the German states because it held the territories of the Spanish Netherlands in the western part of the empire, and states within Italy that were connected by land through the Spanish Road. Check that later when you got time. The Dutch revolted against Spanish domination during the 1560s, leading a protracted war of independence that led to truce only in 1609. France was nearly surrounded by territory controlled by the two Habsburg states, Spain and the Holy Roman Empire, and, feeling threatened, was eager to exert its power against weaker German states. We're surrounded. Hit the Germans, because they're weaker. This dynastic concern overtook religious ones and led to Catholic France's participation on the otherwise Protestant side of the war. Isn't that funny? Yeah, think about it. Okay. Sweden and Denmark, Norway were interested in gaining control over northern German states bordering the Baltic Sea. The Holy Roman Empire was a fragmented collection of largely independent states, a fragmentation that the Peace of Westphalia would solidify. The position of the Holy Roman Emperor was mainly titular, but the emperors from the House of Habsburg also directly ruled a large portion of imperial territory, lands of the Archduchy of Austria and the Kingdom of Bohemia, as well as the Kingdom of Hungary. Are you Hungary? Hungary? The Austrian domain was thus a major European power in its own right, ruling over some 8 million subjects. Another branch of the House of Habsburg ruled over Spain and its empire, which included the Spanish Netherlands, southern Italy, the Philippines, and most of the Americas. In addition to Habsburg lands, the Holy Roman Empire contained several regional powers, such as the Duchy of Bavaria, the Electorate of Saxony, the Margraviate of Brandenburg, the Electorate of the Palatinate, and the Landgraviate of Hesse. A vast number of minor independent duchies, free cities, abbeys, prince bishoprics, and petty lordships whose authority sometimes extended to no more than a single village rounded out the empire. Apart from Austria and perhaps Bavaria, none of those entities was capable of national-level politics. Alliances between family-related states were common, due partly to the frequent practice of partible inheritance, i.e. splitting a lord's inheritance among his various sons. First they take over, and then they have to give everything to their kids, but they want their kids to have as much, so they grab more, and it just gets out of hand. Religious tensions remained strong throughout the second half of the 16th century. The Peace of Augsburg began to unravel. Some converted. Bishops refused to give up their bishoprics, and certain Habsburgs and other Catholic rulers of the Holy Roman Empire in Spain sought to restore the power of Catholicism in the region. This was evident from the Cologne War, 1583-88, a conflict initiated when the Prince Archbishop of the city, Gebhard Truchsess von Waldburg, converted to Calvinism. As he was an imperial elector, this could have produced a Protestant majority in the college that elected the Holy Roman Emperor, a position that was always held by a Roman Catholic. In the Cologne War, Spanish troops expelled the former Prince Archbishop and replaced him with Ernst of Bavaria, a Roman Catholic. After this success, the Catholics regained peace, and the principle of Curius Regio, Eius Religio began to be exerted more strictly in Bavaria, the Würzburg, and other states. This forced Lutheran residents to choose between conversion or exile. Lutherans also witnessed the defection of the lords of the Palatinate, 1560, Nassau, 1578, Hesse-Kassel, 1603, and Brandenburg, 1613, to the new Calvinist faith. Thus, at the beginning of the 17th century, the Rhinelands and those south of the Danube were largely Catholic, while Lutherans predominated in the north, and Calvinists dominated in certain other areas, such as west-central Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Minorities of each creed existed almost everywhere. However, in some lordships and cities, the numbers of Calvinists, Catholics, and Lutherans were approximately equal. Much to the consternation of their Spanish ruling cousins, the Habsburg emperors who followed Charles V, especially Ferdinand I and Maximilian II, but also Rudolf II and his successor Matthias, were content to allow the princes of the empire to choose their own religious policies. These rulers avoided religious wars within the empire by allowing the different Christian faiths to spread without coercion. This angered those who sought religious uniformity. Meanwhile, Sweden and Denmark-Norway, both Lutheran kingdoms, sought to assist the Protestant cause in the empire and wanted to gain political and economic influence there as well. Religious tensions broke into violence in the German free city of Donauwörth in 1606. There, the Lutheran majority barred the Catholic residents of the Swabian town from holding an annual Marcus procession, which provoked a riot called the Battle of the Flags. Battle of the Flags. This prompted foreign intervention by Duke Maximilian of Bavaria on behalf of the Catholics. After the violence ceased, Calvinists in Germany, who remained a minority, felt the most threatened. They banded together and formed the Protestant Union in 1608 under the leadership of the Elector Palatine Frederick IV, whose son Frederick V married Elizabeth Stuart, the Scottish-born daughter of King James VI of Scotland and first of England and Ireland. The establishment of the League prompted the Catholics into banding together to form the Catholic League in 1609 under the leadership of Duke Maximilian. Tensions escalated further in 1609 with the War of the Jülich Succession, which began when John William, Duke of Jülich-Klevsberg, the ruler of the strategically important United Duchies of Jülich-Klevsberg, died died childless because it had child, and I was like, died childless. Two rival claimants vied for the duchy. The first was Duchess Anna of Prussia, daughter of Duke John William's eldest sister, Marie Eleanor of Cleves. Anna was married to John Sigismund, Elector of Brandenburg. The second was Wolfgang William, Count Palatine of Neuburg, who was the son of Duke John William's second eldest sister, Anna of Cleves. Yeah, these royalties, man. God, create so many problems. I think Aristotle talks about that stuff in politics, but I digress. Duchess Anna of Prussia claimed Jülich Klevsberg as the heir to the senior line, while Wolfgang William, Count Palatine of Neuburg, claimed Jülich Klevsberg as Duke John William's eldest male heir. Both claimants were Protestants. In 1610, to prevent war between the rival claimants, the forces of Rudolf II, Holy Roman Emperor, occupied Jülich Klevsberg under the Aulic Council, Reichshofrat. Say that 10 times fast. Resolved the dispute. That resolved the dispute. Okay. However, several Protestant princes feared that the Emperor Rudolf II, a Catholic, intended to keep Jülich Klevsberg for himself to prevent the United Duchies falling into Protestant hands. Representatives of Henry IV of France and the Dutch Republic gathered forthwith to invade Jülich Klevsberg, but these plans were cut short by the assassination of Henry IV by the Catholic fanatic François Ravaillac. Hoping to gain an advantage in the dispute, Wolfgang William converted to Catholicism. John Sigismund, though, converted to Calvinism, although Anna of Prussia stayed Lutheran. The dispute was settled in 1614 with the Treaty of Xanten, or however you say that, by which the United Duchies were dismantled. Jülich and Berg were awarded to Wolfgang William, while John Sigismund gained Cleves, Mark, and Ravensburg. The background of the Dutch revolt also had close relations to the events leading to the 30 Years' War. It was widely known that the 12 years' truce was set to expire in 1621, and throughout Europe it was recognized at that time. Spain would attempt to reconquer the Dutch Republic. Forces under Ambrogio Spinola, first Marquis of the Balbases, the Genoese commander of the Spanish army, would be able to pass through friendly territories to reach the Dutch Republic. The only hostile state that stood in his way was the electorate of the Palatinate. Spinola's preferred route would take him through the Republic of Genoa, the Duchy of Milan, the Valtelline, around hostile Switzerland, bypassing it along the north shore of Lake Constance, then through Alsace, the Archbishopric of Strasbourg, the electorate of the Palatinate, and then finally through the Archbishopric of Trier, Jülich and Berg, and on to the Dutch Republic. The Palatinate thus assumed a strategic importance in European affairs out of all proportion to its size. This explains why the Protestant James VI and first arranged for the marriage of his daughter Elizabeth Stuart to Frederick V, Elector Palatine in 1612, in spite of the social convention that a princess would only marry another royal. By 1617, it was apparent that Matthias, Holy Roman Emperor and King of Bohemia, would die without an heir. With his lands and his hands in the hands of his lands, going to his nearest male relative, his cousin, Archduke Ferdinand of Austria, remember him? Heir apparent and Crown Prince of Bohemia. With the Onnet Treaty, Philip III of Spain agreed to the succession. Ferdinand, educated by the Jesuits, was a staunch Catholic who wanted to impose religious uniformity on his lands. This made him highly unpopular in Protestant primarily Hussite Bohemia. The Bohemian nobility rejected Ferdinand, who had been elected Bohemian crown prince in 1617. Ferdinand's representatives were thrown out of a window in Prague and seriously injured, triggering the 30 Years' War. I forgot that they were injured in the. I thought they were killed. I actually forgot that. I hadn't read this in a while, but they were thrown out of a window in Prague and seriously injured, triggering the 30 Years' War in 1618. This so-called defenestration of Prague, in case you ever wondered what the word defenestration means, provoked open revolt in Bohemia, which had powerful foreign allies. Ferdinand was upset by the calculated insult, but his intolerant policies in his own lands had left him in a weak position. The Habsburg cause in the next few years would seem to suffer unrecoverable reverses. The Protestant cause seemed to wax toward a quick overall victory. The war can be divided into 4 major phases: the Bohemian Revolt, the Danish intervention, the Swedish intervention, and the French intervention. Beginnings: 1618 to 1625, the Bohemian Revolt. Without heirs, Emperor Matthias sought to assure an orderly transition during his lifetime by having his dynastic heir, the fiercely Catholic Ferdinand of Styria, later Ferdinand II, Holy Roman Emperor, elected to the separate royal thrones of Bohemia and Hungary. Some of the Protestant leaders of Bohemia feared they would be losing the religious rights granted to them by Emperor Rudolf II in his Letter of Majesty 1609. They preferred the Protestant Frederick V, elector of the Palatinate, successor of Frederick IV, the creator of the Protestant Union. However, other Protestants supported the stance taken by the Catholics, and in 1617 Ferdinand was duly elected by the Bohemian Estates to become the crown prince, and automatically, upon the death of Matthias, the next king of Bohemia, the king-elect then sent 2 Catholic counselors, Wilhelm Slavata of Chlum and Jaroslav Borzita of Martinice, as his representatives to Prague Castle in Prague in May 1618. Ferdinand had wanted them to administer the government in his absence. On the 23rd of May 1618, an assembly of Protestants seized them and threw them, and also Secretary Philip Fabricius, out of the palace window, which was some 21 meters, 69 feet off the ground. Man, they 70 feet, 21 meters. My God. Although injured, they survived. I bet that was a surprise. This event, known as the Third Defenestration, not the first, not the second, folks, but the Third Defenestration of Prague, started the Bohemian Revolt. Soon afterward, the Bohemian conflict spread through all the Bohemian crown, including Bohemia, Silesia, Upper and Lower Lusatia, and Moravia. Moravia was already embroiled in a conflict between Catholics and Protestants. The religious conflict eventually spread across the whole continent of Europe and also increased the concerns of a Habsburg hegemony, involving France, Sweden, and a number of other countries. The death of Emperor Matthias emboldened the rebellious Protestant leaders who had been on the verge of a settlement. The weaknesses of both Ferdinand, now officially on the throne after the death of Emperor Matthias, and of the Bohemians themselves, led to the spread of the war to Western Germany. Ferdinand was compelled to call on his nephew, Philip IV of Spain, for assistance. The Bohemians, desperate for allies against the emperor, applied to be admitted into the Protestant Union, which was led by the original candidate for the Bohemian throne, the Calvinist Frederick V, Elector Palatine. The Bohemians hinted Frederick would become king of Bohemia if he allowed them to join the Union and come under its protection. However, similar offers were made by other members of the Bohemian estates to the Duke of Savoy, the Elector of Saxony, and the Prince of Transylvania. The Austrians, who seemed to have intercepted every letter leaving Prague, made these duplicities public. This unraveled much of the support for the Bohemians, particularly in the court of Saxony. In spite of these issues surrounding their support, the rebellion initially favored the Bohemians. They were joined in the revolt by much of Upper Austria, whose nobility was then chiefly Lutheran and Calvinist. Lower Austria revolted soon after, and in 1619 Count Thurn led an army to the walls of Vienna itself. Moreover, within the British Isles, Frederick V's cause became seen as that of Elizabeth Stuart, described by her supporters as the jewel of Europe, leading to a stream of tens of thousands of volunteers to her cause throughout the course of the 30 Years' War. In the opening phase, an Anglo-Dutch regiment under Horace Vere headed to the Palatinate. A Scots-Dutch regiment under Colonel John Seton moved into Bohemia, and that was joined by a mixed regiment of Britons, Scots and English, led by the Scottish Catholic Sir Andrew Grey. Seton's regiment was the last of Protestant allies to leave the Bohemian theater after tenaciously holding the town of Brabant until 1622. Tenaciously. I'm a tenacious cow. And only departing once the rights of the citizens had been secured. Look, the Ottomans got on board with the Transylvanians. That's a turnabout. Hey, look how things ended up. I bet old Vlad Shepis had flipped over in his grave. Okay. Was that the guy? I think it was him. Yeah. In the east, the Protestant Hungarian Prince of Transylvania, Gabriel Bethlen, led a spirited campaign into Hungary with the support of the Ottoman Sultan Osman II. Fearful of the Catholic policies of Ferdinand II, Gabriel Bethlen requested the protectorate by Osman II, so the Ottoman Empire became the one and only ally of a great power status which the rebellious Bohemian states could muster after they had shaken off Habsburg rule and had elected Frederick V as a Protestant king. Ambassadors were exchanged with Heinrich Beta, using Constantinople in January 1620 and Mehmed Aga visiting Prague in July 1620. The Ottomans offered a force of 60,000 cavalry to Frederick, and plans were made for an invasion of Poland. Oh no, yeah, with 400,000 troops in exchange for the payment of an annual tribute to the Sultan. We'll pay you, Sultan. We just want to insult him. These negotiations triggered the Polish-Ottoman War of 1620 and 21. The Ottomans defeated the Poles, fancy that, who were supporting the Habsburg in the 30 Years' War at the Battle of Secora in September-October 1620, but were not able to further intervene efficiently before the Bohemian defeat at the Battle of the White Mountain in November 1620. Later, Poles defeated the Ottomans at the Battle of Chocim, and the war ended with the status quo. The emperor, who had been preoccupied with the Uskok War, hurried to muster an army to stop the Bohemians and their allies from overwhelming his country. Count Bucquoy, the commander of the imperial army, defeated the forces of the Protestant Union led by Count Mansfeld at the Battle of Sablat on the 10th of June 1619. This cut off Count Thurn's communications with Prague, and he was forced to abandon his siege of Vienna. The Battle of Sablat also cost the Protestants an important ally, Savoy, long an opponent of the Habsburg expansion. Savoy already sent considerable sums of money to the Protestants and even troops to garrison fortresses in the Rhineland. The capture of Mansfeld's field chancery revealed the Savoyards' involvement, and they were forced to bow out of the war. Dun, dun, dun. Catholic intervention. Dun, 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 dun. The Spanish army sent from Brussels under Ambrosio Spinola to support the emperor. In addition, the Spanish ambassador to Vienna, Don Inigo Velez de Oñate, persuaded Protestant Saxony to intervene against Bohemia in exchange for control over Lusatia. The Saxons invaded, and the Spanish army in the west prevented the Protestant Union's forces from assisting. Oñate conspired to transfer the electoral title from the Palatinate to the Duke of Bavaria in exchange for his support and that of the Catholic League. The Catholic League's army pacified Upper Austria, while imperial forces under Johann Zerkles, Count of Tilly, the all-time teller, pacified Lower Austria. It's not the all-time teller. I just couldn't resist that. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. The two are. It's a place. The two armies united and moved forward into Bohemia. Ferdinand II decisively defeated Frederick V at the Battle of White Mountain near Prague on the 8th of November 1620. In addition to becoming Catholic, Bohemia remained in Habsburg hands for nearly 300 years. Think about it. In addition to becoming Catholic, Bohemia remained in Habsburg hands for nearly 300 years. This defeat led to the dissolution of the Protestant Union and the loss of Frederick V's holding, despite of the tenacious defense of Trebon, Bohemia, under Colonel Seton, until 1622, and Frankenthal under Colonel Veer the following year. Frederick was outlawed from the Holy Roman Empire, and his territories, the Rhenish Palatinate, were given to Catholic nobles. His title